Coming up on the Cody Willard Show, the Trump administration's attempt at $100 billion in tax cuts, Facebook raising red flags over the midterm elections, and the outlook for Twitter, Netflix, and other high-flying tech stocks. The Cody Willard Show is brought to you by TradingWithCody.com.
How many times did we say Cody in the beginning? What was that movie that Eddie Murphy did? It's Harlem Nights, I think it was, with he was executive producer, director, producer, starring, writer. At the end of the movie, it was like 20 names of Eddie Murphy's name in a row. Speaking of names, Chris McHugh, my executive producer, here to join me as always. Thanks so much for being here, Chris.
Of course, my friend. What do we got today? Trump administration officials are floating the idea that President Trump could go around Congress and cut taxes on his own. The goal would be to adjust taxes on capital gains for inflation. The goal is $100 billion in tax cuts. What say you, Cody?
Look, number one, I guess it's not technically Trump that's going to try to bypass Congress. It's the Treasury Department under Trump's administration, which I get. Okay, so it's all the same thing. So, yes, let's just step back. Capital gains taxes is what happens when you own something, typically for a while, and it goes up a bunch. So if you bought something, here are the people that are trying to sell this to you as a main street working class tax cut. They'll say, well, people who bought something at $10,000 and are selling it at $50,000 won't have to pay as much in taxes, because typically what you would do is you take the $10,000 from the $50,000, therefore you have $40,000 in profits, and that's what you pay taxes on, what you paid versus what you sold it for. So that's the problem, is that's not really who this is going to be about. It's not a $10,000 to $60,000 investment. This is going to help multi-millionaires, 100-millionaires, billionaires, and especially giant corporations who invest in something for $10 million and sell it for $100 million or $1 billion. And what they're going to do is what this balloon was floated is trying to do, what they say they want to do is add inflation costs to what your actual price was. So that if there's the logic being that if inflation was 10% per year and your asset went up 10% per year, you're actually no better off. The problem with all of this is that who's measuring inflation? Where are those numbers going to come from? You're going to end up with two government measurements of inflation. One will be the official what they're measuring when they ISM and looking at the economic numbers and what the actual prices paid for producers, for consumers are. And they're going to try to keep that number as low as possible as they measure it. And they'll do as many exemptions and tricks to measuring that stuff to keep those numbers low, to tell everybody that, look, inflation is low. But on the other hand, they're going to have a different inflation number that they will use for capital gains taxes for corporations and billionaires. So what this is yet again, a targeted tax trick for wealthy people. Now, before we pretend that the Democrats would be any better, it's incredible, the hypocrisy, to listen to any Democrat sit up there today and talk about this being yet another giveaway to giant corporations and welfare, when every single bill that Pelosi or Obama or anyone else has ever passed has exactly been a giveaway to giant corporations and the wealthy. The Democrats have never done anything for poor people or the middle class either. It's all been targeted tax tricks for wealthy and giant corporations. Obamacare was a giveaway to giant healthcare corporations. I've got a simple solution for all of this. Look, if you Republicans and Democrats, the Republican-Democrat regime, want to do targeted tax cuts, you have to simultaneously cut subsidies and welfare programs for that same sector. So if you're going to cut taxes for people who have lots of capital gains and lots of wealth and billionaires and giant corporations, you have to cut just as much pork, subsidies, targeted welfare for those same sectors if you're going to give them a tax cut. The further you give subsidies and welfare to these giant corporations and billionaires and simultaneously cut their tax obligations, you're going to gut out the middle class in rural America. And that's exactly what's been happening for a long time. I think I've been going on this for way too long. The final question is this: if none of this has to go through Congress anymore, then are we already stepping towards a complete dictatorship? Because is one administration going to be able to decide what the tax code is? Is that what our country is supposed to be about? Chris, back to you.
All right, Cody. So it's really interesting as you open the paper, if you will, every morning, or in this day and age, look at websites on your phone or your computer and see what's above the fold, as they used to say in newspaper business, what they're highlighting. So we took screenshots, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, Reuters, and the AP, and let's take a look this morning, if you woke up around 9 a.m. Eastern, what you would be seeing on those sites. So here we got AP.
Pope charges death penalty teaching he changes that death penalty teaching. It's now inadmissible. I don't even know how you would interpret that headline. Maybe they're trying to get you to click through and actually read what it says, because that headline is completely garbled. But let's see what the next headline is.
Here we got Reuters next.
Reuters, a ride with Lakota to mark treaty anniversary. A ride with the Lakota to mark treaty anniversary. That's an interesting headline, not something mainstream. I don't think any other headline, any other mainstream news is going to have that as their lead article. Great picture too, that's beautiful.
And as we move over to the left, we got MSNBC.
What's this left? Don't you try to frame things left and right. We can call it so-called left, because the MSNBC, CNN, Democrat side of the Republican Democrat regime propaganda machine is certainly not left, as I just talked about. It is very, very right compared to what liberal what the hell? I don't even know. None of this liberal left-right stuff makes any sense. Here's the headline: Mueller's prosecutors may save Gates for second Manafort trial. Oh, so we're going to, look, let's distract ourselves with Manafort and all of this stuff. I don't know. Kids are starving and people are being shot. Next headline.
Before we move on to that, Cody, just look at the difference in the layout on MSNBC's page, which looks, to me at least, like a complete mess. I don't know what's going on. And then you go all the way over here to CNN, which I could actually tell what the lead story is. Yeah. There we go. You're back to the Pope saying,
and we're back to the Pope there.
Death penalty, no, bad.
Let's hit I'll just hit this very controversial topic. I am always 100% against violence and death, whether it's administered by the state or individuals or corporations or private armies or militias or anything else. We've seen way, way too many documentaries on Netflix and elsewhere exposing how many times there's prosecutorial bad actors sending innocent people to death or jail for life. We should never kill someone because you could be wrong.
Okay, and here's what we got last up here. This is Fox News Channel.
The perceived right, the so-called right, so-called conservative. Is that what I'm supposed to believe? Anyway, yes, they are certainly hitting. Look, it's going to be a Trump headline most of the time on Fox News, and a pro-Trump headline most of the time on Fox News, just like on CNN and MSNBC. It's going to be a anti-Trump headline. Chris, it's amazing to look at these headlines. Every day that I look, I read all day, every day. I read news, books, everything I get my hands on. And I read the New York Times, and then I'll switch over to the New York Post. That gets me perceived left and perceived right. And then I'll go over to the Washington Post, and I'll go over to Fox News. And again, I'll just try to see how the propaganda from the Democrat liberal media is framing stuff, and how the propaganda from the conservative, right, Republican side of media is framing things. And you highlighted it right there.
And when I worked in TV news, we would subscribe to Reuters and AP news wires. And I always thought, though, the most concise, quick read where I could get my arms around it was probably the Associated Press. And now I just put Reuters and AP apps on my phone. So as the weeks go on, though, it's going to be interesting to see how they frame things. And these are, for people that don't know, your local TV station or any TV network is going to subscribe to those, and they're basically rewriting that content. So a lot of times they're the originators of the content. So it's interesting analyzing what the Associated Press is dishing out.
Great point, Chris. And I don't read the Associated Press and Reuters daily. I'll hit CNBC, the Wall Street Journal, and just headlines from Yahoo or Google, and those you'll see Reuters and AP. I'll start paying more attention to those two. That'll be interesting. We'll track we'll see how propagandic they are too.
That's your bathroom reading for the week then, Cody. All right, so Facebook, as lots of people know, is heightening those concerns about election interference, now saying that it's uncovered sophisticated efforts, possibly linked to Russia, to manipulate U.S. politics in the upcoming midterm elections. Can we get a break, Cody?
I'll give you a break, and I thank you so much for doing the
snare marks,
parentheses, quotations around sophisticated, because the first point that I can't fathom is how hard is it to tell that these are spam fake accounts that are putting this stuff up there? I get 5 to 10 friend requests per day on my Facebook account, and I would bet 60 to 80% of them at any given week are fake accounts, and they're clear. I'll click on it if I have any question at all, just to make sure. And just what was it, last night, there was a friend request, and it was a woman, wasn't all busty 22-year-old selfie-looking thing. I wondered, though, if it might be a Wall Street kind of marketing thing. But I clicked on it, and I was wrong. It was actually a fake account from some, I don't even know what nationality it was, but it was a girl trying to get people to, not even a girl, it was a fake girl's Facebook page trying to get people like me to click on it, like all this stuff. It's so obvious that is fake. I don't know what's wrong with Facebook.
And I know I'm a middle-aged guy, so I don't even fall for it. I'm like, there's no way I know anybody that attractive and that young. So I just skip right over it.
It's astounding to me that they're going to call it sophisticated. This is not sophisticated stuff. And if Facebook's got supposedly tens of thousands of people working on this, I could personally wipe out 1,000 fake Facebook accounts a day. Now get to the fact that these fake accounts are actually propagandizing and trying to get people to be all racially inflamed, trying to get racist tensions inflamed, trying to go, I don't even, it's anti-abolish ICE, or it was pro-abolish ICE, or are we supposed to be abolishing ICE, or all of this stuff. But if you look on the people that are putting that fake stuff up, it's clearly not real people. Piper and I are not putting stuff up. Look, my wife gets so much good stuff out of Facebook. There is beautiful stuff on Facebook. My wife will post videos of my daughter Amaris and me and my buddy Rod that I work with in this office here, playing piano and singing. And it's terrible footage, but look how cute that is. And you can see Amaris looking back at Rod, and we're singing Buddy Holly every day. She played a note for us there. So beautiful stuff. And that stuff's on Facebook. You can find beautiful stuff on Facebook. My wife uses Facebook for trisomy support groups. She gets so much out of being part of a community that my daughter there that you just saw, my daughter Amaris, has a genetic disorder called trisomy 13. And my wife is in these groups, and she'll spend so much time interacting, working with these groups, getting them to, getting involved and having support. And here's one, blenderized. My daughter has a G tube. She eats through a gastro tube, and we feed her blenderized food. And my wife learns this stuff, and our lives are better because of some of the stuff that we get out of Facebook. But yes, there's so much evil and so much bad stuff on Facebook. But I put it to you guys. Are you that dumb? Are you that dumb that you can't tell the difference?
Here's the thing. The Russian was trying to meddle with the elections by getting people to talk at each other and have debate. Isn't that democracy? Aren't they just like making us do what we already do so well? What was the end game there? What was the end game? That's an interesting
flip it, Chris, because it is almost like, what's the downside of them stimulating conversation? What the downside is that that's not real people stimulating the conversation. And again, it's sort of like what you get when you watch cable news media or just even network news, reading the newspapers. Any corporate news outlet is framing the topics in ways that are probably not helpful or real, but they're probably loaded in some slanted, biased take that they're wanting you to look at the world through that lens. And that's the same thing. I don't want to look through the world in the lens that Russian propaganda, mafia, KGB, Putin are trying to make me perceive the world as some place that's all about this stuff. I mean, we certainly need to talk about it, but not in the way that Russia's framing it.
Now on deck, we got a new segment. All right, you guys have heard of Star Wars, but maybe not Turkish Star Wars. New segment we got here is Corey Turner, and he's going to tell us why you should watch this so bad it's good flick and his amazingly bad movie reviews.
This is Corey Turner, and welcome to Corey Turner's Amazingly Bad Movie Reviews. Looking for an early 80s foreign science fiction Star Wars knockoff? Instead of a knockoff, how about one that just stole footage and scenes directly from Star Wars? Then Dana Ni Kananadron is just the movie for you. Nailed the name! Only 14 takes. Now translated, the title is The Man Who Saved the World, or better known as the Turkish Star Wars. This movie may have stolen Star Wars footage of X-Wing fighters, the Millennium Falcon, and the attack on the Death Star, but it sure didn't steal its storylines. This plot follows our two pilot heroes as they fight against an evil wizard and his comical host of minions to save the world. Mummies, skeletons, Sasquatches, and robots are no match for our heroes who trained heavily for this mission. You can take on Darth Vader with those classy leg weights. If you're ready to bust a couple of ribs laughing, check out this cult classic.
A former CNBC and Fox News anchor, hedge fund manager, and the go-to stock market guest for The Tonight Show, Cody Willard and his stock analysis have been published in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fortune magazine, and many other places. Want to follow his secrets to investment success? Go to tradingwithcody.com. There you can get analysis on stocks, cryptos, markets, and the economy, a full list of Cody's positions, access to Cody's chat room, trade alerts every time Cody buys or sells, and much more. To find out more, go to tradingwithcody.com. The Cody Willard Show.
High-flying tech stocks have been hit for 20 to 30% in the last week or so. What are your thoughts on the markets in general and tech stocks specifically now?
So, my Trading with Cody subscribers have known that for the last year, several months, certainly since the beginning of this year, I have been increasingly cautious on the stock market. I've been trimming, raising cash, preaching caution, and just the data points we've collected in the last week really does underscore what I see as a battlefield environment for stocks that has me continuing to want to have, not necessarily favor cash, but to certainly have more cash on the sheets today than I did 6 months ago or 2 years ago. On the one hand, Google and Amazon blew, and last night, Apple blowing people's minds, Tesla blowing people's minds with how good their earnings reports were, their guidance was, how well the companies are actually performing. On the other hand, Twitter, Facebook, blowing people's minds with how bad their quarterly reports and guidance were. On the one hand, you had a GDP growth rate Economic growth is 4.1% according to the Republican Democrat regime data points and how they massaged them and reported them to you. On the other hand, there's a lot of industrial companies out there warning that inflation is really starting to spike in aluminum prices, steel prices. Those tariffs are hitting the infrastructure costs of this world, of this country. On the one hand, you've got the NASDAQ up 10% plus on the year, near all-time highs. On the other hand, the Shanghai Index, China's stock market, down more than 15% and down 40% from its all-time highs from 2015. On the one hand, the great trade war of the 21st century is escalating. On the other hand, the global economy is creating millions of new middle-class consumers and workers, and the tech revolutions like the app revolution, the smartphone revolution, robotics revolution, driverless revolution, they are creating hidden productivity and consumption factors. Access to capital in this world has never been better because we can move I's and ones and O's all around the world and call it money. That's what I think. It's a battlefield out there, guys. So look, it's not like the bubble blowing bull market is probably over. It's not like you should sell everything and freak out and go to cash. But I can't find many stocks I want to buy at this particular moment. There are some, but not many.
You will see on the left side of your screen, we have a brand new segment here on the Cody Willard Show. So let's get out the rye bread mustard, Grandma. It's time for Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk sports with you, cowboy. Thank you for having me. The big story right now in sports, which we can't get away from, is Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was the coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He no longer is. They put him on administration leave because of all the allegations going on with his assistant coach that beat his wife up, and his wife, the wife of the coach, his name is Zach Smith, and his wife's name is Courtney Smith. And long story short, she sent pictures of the abuse to Coach Urban 3 years ago. Supposedly nothing happened. Urban kind of like just didn't do anything about it. All of a sudden, these allegations are coming out now again. And the same coach was arrested in 2009 for domestic abuse, and nothing happened. So he fired this coach last week, and now all of a sudden, it's coming out that Urban knew about what was going on the whole time. And
Ross,
the school's not happy about it. So because it goes beyond football. We're talking about human lives here. Yes.
And that's exactly it. I just sort of glanced at some of those reports this morning, and it looked like Urban had players on his team who were stalking and or raping and or burglarizing and committing crimes, and he'd suspend them for like 2 games or something. And none of this was being reported. Is this as endemic as I think it is? I'm so cynical about college sports and these millionaire coaches not paying their players and 18-year-old workers not being paid for what they're actually doing. The whole thing's corrupt. I can't imagine that any major Division I football program is any better than what we just found out.
Yeah, but the whole thing is, you're talking about this woman who had no place to go. I'm talking about the assistant coach wives. She had pictures she sent to Urban's wife. Nothing happened. She's alone on an island. Everybody protects the coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, I feel bad for her. I mean, again, they're still investigating. I don't want to say all this stuff is true. Where there's smoke, there's fire, as we know that, Cody. And,
Ross, what do you think? Is this the tip of the iceberg? Are we going to find out that dozens, if not most, major Division I football programs are guilty of these same kind of things? I know when I played Division I basketball at the Lobos, we had players who were caught burglarizing and committing crimes, and they were suspended maybe they couldn't start the next game or something.
Well, do you remember the FBI probe they had last year with the University of Arizona, University of Kentucky, University of Louisville? They were doing this big FBI sting, and we heard about it. They had video, they had tapes of people exchanging money. Then it kind of disappeared. Nothing happened. The NCAA stepped away. No one did anything. I still haven't heard about it. Nobody's fired. Nobody's suspended. Everybody's going to the tournament. No one cares. So I think they want ratings. They want money. It's all about money, Cody. It's not about anything else. It's money. And
always follow the money. The corruption.
And talking about money,
if there's money, if it's other people's money, and these Division I programs, Alabama, Ohio State, they are funded with tax dollars. You either need to separate that from those teams, or you need to make them completely private. And by the way, the same thing with the professional sports teams getting their free stadiums. Why are public?
Well, let's talk about pro football. Let's talk about pro football. Pro football starts tonight. Tonight's the first game, NBC Hall of Fame game, Bears versus the Ravens. It's going to be in Canton, Ohio. You'll probably see your favorite player maybe play one series, and that's it. There'll be a bunch of third and fourth string players playing. Again, I'm an expert gambler. I give picks. I don't gamble myself, but I go on these huge winning streaks. I did it last basketball season. I looked at both rosters. I looked at the third and fourth strings, and I like the Bears team better. So I'm taking the Bears tonight plus the 2.5 points. We'll see what happens. But again,
Bears plus 2.5.
Yeah, and you're talking about gambling.
Piper, make note. We gotta call our local book.
And talk about gambling. The odds came out for the Super Bowl. The New England Patriots are 6-1 to win it. They're the favorites. The Rams are 10-1. The team I like are the New Orleans Saints. I love their running game. I love their quarterback. I love their defense. They're 18-1. So go to Vegas, Piper, and make that bet. I'm excited about football season. It's one of my favorite sports to follow.
What are the odds on the Saints? Do you know?
18-1.
18-1. I didn't hear if you said that part. So that's
18-1.
So they're not exactly long shots. What's I guess that puts them right in the middle of the pack, I guess, because there's 30 teams.
Yeah, I mean, there's other teams that are 101. There's teams that are 101, but the Rams are up there. They also like the Eagles to repeat. The Eagles are 10-1. But again, the team I like, if you're going to Vegas the next month and you got to make a bet who wins the Super Bowl, I think the best odds and the best team to bet are the Saints. And what's a sports segment without talking about LeBron James, right, Cody? We have to talk about LeBron. Every time I do a sports show, I do LeBron. So my favorite story about LeBron this week, he started a school in Akron, Ohio called I Promise School. And basically what it is he pays for everything. He pays for the kid's bike to ride to school. He pays for the helmet. He pays for the uniform. He pays for the lunch and breakfast. He even gives the kids groceries for the families if they can't afford it. He even finds a job for the parents if they're not working. And if the kid graduates from the school, Cody, he pays 4 years education at the University of Akron so the kid can go to college. Everything is paid for in this school. I never heard of somebody doing this in my life. I love whole respect for LeBron James. I never was a big fan of his. You love the idea, yeah.
Who was the point guard for the Phoenix Suns, who then became the Sacramento mayor? He was on my
Kevin
show.
Johnson, University of California.
So, Mr. Johnson, what's the first name again?
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin. Yeah, he used to wear Air Jordans. I had to post a picture cut out from a Sports Illustrated his rookie season wearing Air Jordans. He had a great vertical jump. Point being, he and his wife pretend that they're doing all this stuff for public schools, for private schools, and the charter schools. Meanwhile, all it is in their case has been scamming the taxpayer and taking money out of public schools and putting it into their charters so that they can pay themselves and the cronies hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Is there, do you know, any public funding, taxpayer dollars going in to help LeBron do this?
They show the school. The school is elaborate. I mean, it looks like the Sistine Chapel. I mean, it's a beautiful school.
I saw
that. It has all the luxury. Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know the public funding on it. I can't speak for LeBron. I can't speak for the state of Ohio. But all I know is he's doing something that's really never been done with. I mean, I love the whole program. I love how he's basically just taking his money and making kids' dreams come true. I mean, this is bringing it back to the community. You know what I mean? This is something.
I truly hope it's mostly
he's in LA
his
now.
money.
He's in my area.
I truly hope it's mostly his money. But I will say, if they are if the people, the Republican Democrat regime people in office in Cleveland and in Ohio are choosing to use taxpayer dollars to help those kids at that school, that's something I'm okay with, at least in concept. I just don't want anyone making millions of dollars in the name of charter schools off of taxpayer money. That's not actual privatization.
I'll have my team investigate that. I have a staff here that will do that, and I'll have the answer for you next week. Really quick, Carmelo Anthony, he was traded to the Atlanta Hawks a week ago. They waived him yesterday. He got paid, listen to this, 5 days work on the Atlanta Hawks. You know, he was working hard for 5 days during the offseason. They had to pay him out $25 million so he can be a free agent. So he was an Atlanta Hawk for 5 days, made $25 million. Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, a bunch of major stars are not even make that next season. You know, this guy made $25 million in 5 days for the Hawks, which is unbelievable.
$5 million in 5 days. That's basically
$25 million.
$5 million a day for 5 days is almost exactly what I guarantee you can get by subscribing at tradingwithcody.com. Go to tradingwithcody.com. You can make $5 million per day for 5 days straight. And I'm kidding. You cannot. There is no easy money unless your name is Carmelo Anthony.
And talking about money, Tiger Woods is going to play Phil Mickelson in a one-on-one competition in Las Vegas, either November 23rd or 24th. Winner take $10 million. The winner gets $10 million.
That's brilliant.
$10 million.
Pay-per-view.
I don't think pay-per-view. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know who gets the TV
pay-per-view. I'll bet you right now, Ross, they're going to make that's a pay-per-view. That's and
I don't know
I
if
love
I would pay
that
$1 to watch that.
Ross, who's going to win?
Yeah, I'd say Vegas has Tiger winning. I went to Arizona State. Phil Mickelson went to Arizona State. He's left-handed. I'm left-handed. Ross the Boss will take Phil Mickelson. You heard it first.
That is the worst reason ever. That's like buying a stock because its stock ticker is ROSS. Oh, wait, by the way, if you bought ROSS, the stock, Ross Stores, it would be up 1,000% in the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Just listen to Ross and buy things.
Ross the Boss, you can't go wrong. I'm never wrong. I'm always right.
Thank you. I love you. It's so good to see you. Ross is a partner, friend of mine for many years, former Tonight Show all-star producer. Chris.
Okay. All right. So we got questions. We got Cody's mailbag coming up here. And the first question we got, Cody, is why am I reading articles regarding the impending death of the FANG for high-performing technology stocks when Apple, Google, and Amazon posted excellent numbers, but Facebook fumbled the ball? Seems okay to me.
Let's not whistle past any graveyards. Actually, I'm never actually sure. I told my Trey and Cody subscribers yesterday when I wrote that about this question. I don't know when that analogy ever works. I think it applies here. And the point is, don't be complacent. I agree that, look, you shouldn't, it's not like the whole bubble blowing bull market has had its bell rung, its ring belled. It's not like the whole bubble-blowing bull market has had its bell rung. Thanks, Piper. It's not like all of a sudden there's the top, ding, 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 let's sell everything. And those articles aren't necessarily saying that. But we also need to be aware that valuations in the market are through the roof in the last 5 years. So many middling, not revolutionary, just decent technology or consumer goods or defense companies, stocks are up 300 or 500%. They've doubled or tripled at least. So many companies trading at $5 to $100 billion market caps are trading at like 10 times or 12 times sales, revenues, not earnings. Buying a company at 10 or 12 times earnings, you can argue is cheap, depending on its growth rate. Buying a company at 10 or 12 times sales, it's tough to argue that that is a cheap stock. Apple, by the way, trading at like 4 times sales. So I want to be aware that stocks can turn and go down and start pricing in bad times. They can start having their valuations clipped. The stock multiples can come down even if earnings continue to grow. A bubble-blowing bull market isn't guaranteed even if the fundamentals and earnings of these companies continue to grow very quickly like they have been for the last 5 years. So I've owned Facebook since 20. I've owned Apple since it was at $1, March 2003. I've owned Google since the day it came public at 45. And I still hold them, but I've trimmed some of all of them. And I own Amazon, but I've trimmed it. I think you might just not want to be as aggressive right now as you have been. And I don't want to be complacent. I don't want to just whistle past any graveyards and think that stocks always go up just because earnings and fundamentals are good.
All right, Cody, the next one we got here, they're asking if you have any interest in a hardware producer for 5G, someone along the lines of Nokia or Ericsson. And they go on to say, I doubt you have lots of love for Huawei, but the other two, after missteps, are down a bunch. Verizon will benefit domestically and producers, hopefully, globally.
All right, so that question is addressing something I've talked about over the last couple of shows, and my Train with Cody subscribers, know well. I'm invested in Verizon, and it's mostly because I think they are the best way to invest in 5G in the United States. They have more cash, more access to capital, and better infrastructure, and are more focused on building 5G than any of their competitors, T-Mobile, Sprint, or AT&T. The question is about, can you buy the suppliers, the companies who are selling that equipment to Verizon? Like the companies really these days, like everything else, have been consolidated down to just 2 or 3 competitors because the Republican Democrat regime doesn't enforce antitrust law. But the 2 competitors in this case are Ericsson and Nokia. There is Huawei and a couple other Chinese or Asian companies that are in there selling 5G equipment. There's lots of smaller players out there that sell into 5G in some fashion. But I don't like Verizon and Nokia. They still have so much legacy business and so much legacy debt. They have their balance sheets are terrible. I don't even know if they'll actually have the profit margins on 5G or the size of orders, the average selling price for each of the orders of the equipment that they sell for 5G versus what they did for LTE and 4G and wireless in the past year. So I stick with Verizon as a 5G play, and I avoid Ericsson and Lucent. Just kidding.
All right, Cody. Well, all the questions have been answered. Ross the Boss has spoke.
Thank you all for watching. Peace, love, and happiness.
A former CNBC and Fox News anchor, hedge fund manager, and the go-to stock market guest for The Tonight Show, Cody Willard and his stock analysis have been published in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, Fortune magazine, and many other places. Want to follow his secrets to investment success? Go to tradingwithcody.com. There you can get analysis on stocks, cryptos, markets, and the economy, a full list of Cody's positions, access to Cody's chat room, trade alerts every time Cody buys or sells, and much more. To find out more, go to tradingwithcody.com.